So welcome everyone again. This is the Data to Action webinar series. My name is Christa Hasenkopf, and I'm the director of the Clean Air Program for the Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago. That's a mouthful, so we go by EPIC for short. This webinar series is one we're producing through EPIC's Air Quality Life Index program to spotlight case studies from around the world on how air quality data has been used to catalyze clean air action in its many forms. If you missed our first webinar, we hosted the organization Polish Smog Alert, which played a critical role in making air quality data more accessible to the general public in Poland. They did this by creating a social movement around clean air in Krakow, Poland, and eventually, with support from other local groups around Poland, they initiated policy action across the country. And we'll put a link to that webinar in the chat box if you'd like to check out that video. By the way, we plan to bring more of these webinars this fall, so stay tuned until the end of this webinar to hear more about the upcoming ones. And before I introduce Abid Omar, I'll quickly share EPIC's getting ready to launch the AQI annual report in just a few short weeks. As is always the case, we'll have insights on pollution levels and their impacts on life expectancy from around the world. And this report will also spotlight some fascinating data to action case studies, perhaps including one you'll hear about today. But on to today's focus, Pakistan. Recently, Pakistan's been having what seems like a bit of an air pollution moment, with, from what I can tell, more attention and resources devoted to the issue than ever. The Pakistan Air Quality Initiative was among the first groups to generate and disseminate real-time air quality data in Pakistan. And over the past several years, they've sparked some serious action along the way. The Pakistan Air Quality Initiative, its current efforts are geared towards working with the government to strengthen policy action to reduce air pollution in Pakistan. And we're also proud to have them as part of the 2025 EPIC Air Quality Fund awardee cohort, of course. We'll hear more about how the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative is working with open data and the government from the organization's founder here today with us, Abid Omar. So first we'll hear from Abid, and he'll give a presentation. Then we'll have a discussion about his work, clean air progress in Pakistan and the global air quality landscape. And as an audience member, you'll have the option to ask questions using the Q&A feature, which you'll see there. So with that, let's get started. So welcome, Abid, and now over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks once again for joining this webinar. It's a real pleasure to be here and to share the story of how open data has made such a large difference in Pakistan. And also the story of Pakistan is actually the story of air pollution globally in many ways, at least the recent stories of air pollution. We've actually been doing this since before the first AQLI global report came out. So when we started, we were kind of in a gray area with not knowing any information about what is happening out there. So just checking if you can see the presentation before I carry on. Okay, great. So and I was asked to like go back a little bit when we started, when I rather started in 2016, what it looked like in Pakistan at that time, to be able to, you know, give a better sense of what the data has done. And that story is a story of Lahore and how Lahore has become the global epicenter of air pollution, where it's become this dreary, smoggy, gray city, and it's no longer the city of gardens. And I always started to wonder that where did this smog come from? This gray air, these winter days where you can't get out on the streets, where you can't drive around, where you're stuck at home. I was told not to visit Lahore in those winter months. And this winter fog, we found out that, you know, has a devastating health impacts. But I'm going back to a time when we didn't really know anything. So I started looking around back in 2014, 2015 about air quality data for Pakistan. And to my surprise, there was no available data. There was the World Health Organization's ambient air quality database, which did have some air pollution data. And here is what I looked up in 2016. And this is the data they had in 2016. And what's interesting is even today, I just looked up the current ambient air quality database for updated in 2024, that they still have the same figures. And when you dig down into those figures, like for Karachi, for example, the latest readings they show are from an academic paper published in 2010 with air quality data from 2008. So, and the same story is for Lahore and Peshawar and so many other cities. However, the numbers are really striking, even back then, that air pollution is pretty bad in all of Pakistan's major cities, and it's actually similar to what was then pollution levels in Delhi and Beijing. So, with no information about current information about air pollution, I got curious that what can we do? What can an ordinary citizen do to find out about pollution levels? And that started with the release of low-cost air quality monitors, which only started coming to market around 2016. And that's me with an air quality monitor in 2016, walking around the old city of Lahore and just visually documenting the readings from this monitor, which you couldn't even extract and save and do analysis. And I didn't even know that what I was doing was citizen science. And this single portable monitor then became a community movement of where we put together interested, like-minded individuals to start hosting monitors in their homes and deploy them. But more interesting, also interesting, is the findings that we had. In 2017, we found out that there were no clean air days in Lahore. And the same story is for 2024, that there are still no clean air days. In fact, that the air quality is so polluted that it doesn't even meet Pakistan's own environmental standards for ambient air quality. And when our first data came out for a full year in 2017, I was like, how do we communicate this data? And how do we make it actionable? How do we make it understandable? So I really started thinking about visualizing these PM 2.5 numbers. And uh, and of course, like, just to put the PM 2.5 in perspective, in Lahore, in the winter months, it is over 40 times above World Health Organization's safe limits for air quality, and also over 10 times above Punjab's environmental air quality standards. So how do you visualize such a number, right? Like, how do you make sense of it? And without really using words, numbers, or graphs, like inspired by Ed Hawkins' global warming stripes, I came up with the air pollution stripes. And this was an exhibit back in 2020 at an art show in Karachi. And, it's immediately you can tell that which is which city. There were no labels about what city you're looking at, what data we're looking at, and people who are not aware about air pollution were like, "Oh, is this Lahore and is this Islamabad? Are we looking at blue skies over here and not blue skies?" So. We did the same thing for a number of other cities I'll show you later. But I think more importantly, we started putting that data out on Twitter, inspired by the US Embassy's network, which is no longer active initially in Beijing, and then later on it was in 4 cities in Pakistan as well. So inspired by that network and by their hourly tweets, and even till recently, we have been putting out hourly tweets of air quality. And this data being available uh, uh, through an app, through a website, through social media, is helped put a magnifying glass on air pollution, where you can react to it. And that reaction is very much what has driven change and policy making in Pakistan. Um, what does this data look like in the long term? This is our data from 2017 till 2024. And you can see these crazy pollution spikes happening every year in the winter months. And you can see that these are very, very prominent with PM 2.5 levels even exceeding 1,000 micrograms. It's pretty common to be above 250 micrograms, which is considered beyond index, sorry, which is considered hazardous as per the US EPA's air quality index. So it's a regular feature, it's a seasonal feature, but when the word seasonal comes up, we imagine, oh, okay, it's going to be a very short winter season. The fifth season of smog actually lasts for about 6 months in Lahore. And so these are things that our data, our air quality monitoring network has helped bring to light. They have created a movement where today there are over 150 air quality monitoring stations across Pakistan. And that number with the EPIC Air Quality Award should be increasing substantially within this year, with us putting out 150 two more air quality monitors, as well as two other institutions. The Lahore's urban unit is deploying 160 monitors, and so is the University of Punjab. So I think the conversation around air quality and the data availability is going to be changing very rapidly as we speak. However, is that data enough? Or is data all that we need? So we have done a lot of advocacy awareness sessions. I mean, there have been hundreds of awareness sessions conducted across the country, primarily in Punjab, primarily at schools, both private schools, public schools, primary, secondary schools, to create awareness about air pollution, and that awareness is that Pakistan is part of the global air pollution hotspot, with Lahore taking, I would say, like the number one spot. Lahore is more polluted than New Delhi when you take an apples to apples comparison. And by apples to apples, I mean, like, let's look at this one, which is from the US Embassy's network from last year, sorry, from 2023, where you can see on the left, Lahore experiences not just higher pollution peaks, but also a longer duration of air pollution episodes throughout the year. So on average, we are a little bit more polluted than New Delhi, but these are all hazardous air quality to look at. I was also talking about visualizing this information and communicating that. So this chart is relatively harder to understand than these pollution stripes, where immediately you can get a sense that the first pollution stripe is Lahore, the second one is New Delhi, and you can immediately kind of sense, okay, Lahore is way more redder than New Delhi. So Lahore should be the one more polluted. And in fact, this also shows that Dhaka is also more polluted than New Delhi, while Beijing seems to have cleaned up its air. These are, by the way, all from the US Embassy network, the data that we're looking at. So it's very comparable data. So in Pakistan, it's again not just a problem of Punjab. It's not just a problem of Lahore. Here's the capital city, which is considered very green. Their annual average PM 2.5 levels are also 50, with winter averages being around 100. And besides the urban areas, also in the rural areas, we have crop burning happening, which is a big polluter, a big yet small polluter. We also have in Karachi. I mean, so while I'm mentioning a city, this is pretty universal across Pakistan, where you have urban waste disposal happening by waste just being dumped somewhere, and it's smoldering away. This particular image is a bit striking because you have children playing along the on top of the heaps of these smoldering smoke. And this is not just over here, this one is showing you the exact same spot, and it goes on for miles and miles and miles. That this is how the urban waste is disposed of in the early morning when nobody is there to really look and observe and see what is happening. Um, this is my daily commute in Karachi, as an example. There's a main road separated by a wall where you don't really have anyone going, is where the local area dumps their wastes and somebody puts it to fire at night and, it smolders away. Um, but these visuals are striking, the data is striking, the numbers striking, but we don't really need more data. We don't really need more numbers. I always say that when it comes to these air quality monitors, how many monitors does a place need? Well, you just need one monitor, and after you have the first one, you just need the second one to make sure that the first one is telling you the truth. After that, it becomes more academic. To be able to identify, each neighborhood, each district, to identify local sources. But what is missing and what is important in Pakistan, in India, and in much of the global South is the solutions that have to come out. What's happening in Pakistan is a great example. Here is what was announced by the Punjab government just last week with great fanfare about coming out with these anti-smog guns, which are commonly known as dust suppression systems used at construction sites and other activities where you might have localized sources of dust. But these are being promoted as these QR code connected and AI enabled solutions to smog. These are theatrics with very visible, let's say, optical solutions without really putting in the effort to figure out where the pollution is coming from, what is, where is the cost benefit analysis, where should we put our scarce resources in having the most impact? Should we define model interventions? Should we model the policies that we're doing? And this smog theater from this year is just one example. Last year was announced the smog cleaning tower, so these large outdoor air purifiers. So, that being said, I do have a lot of hope about what is happening, that even though there are these theatrics, at least something is happening. The government is very, very serious and very, very keen about solving air pollution. There is a change in the government in the sense that there is a new generation of leaders, of politicians, of policymakers, of bureaucrats who have come into Pakistan, into positions of power over here, and who want to make their cities, Lahore especially, into a world-class city. And you go to Lahore, you see that it's evolving very rapidly. And these people in positions of power know that we have to come up with solutions. What is missing right now is what those solutions should be, and that evidence base for developing those solutions. And that is what we, the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative, is trying to do in dialogue with the government, with other research institutions, with universities, that we build the evidence base so that whatever measures that are being taken are going to be effective. They're not just going to be theatrics. Monitoring very much supports that, where you're able to immediately in real time measure the impact of any of those solutions. So we do need more monitors. We need lots of monitors. We don't need just PM 2.5 monitors and low-cost monitors. We need regulatory grade monitors. We need to monitor all the other air pollutants of interest. We don't know NOx levels and SOx levels and other things in our cities. So there's a lot that needs to be done. And the World Bank, for example, earlier this year announced a $300 million loan to the government to support and develop action and policy to solve air pollution. We have yet to see what exactly is going to happen. We have seen these small guns come out, but we have yet to see where is a more substantial action and activities that are going to happen. So, and that's where we hope that not just us, but countless other organizations come forward and provide the evidence base to be able to make the right policy decisions, because to achieve blue skies, we have to do it through better science. And the future is not just about having more data, it's about what we do with it. And this is fundamentally a crisis of policymaking and governance. And it's also a story of the entire developing world, of the global south, where the governments need to come together through the evidence base and figure out what to do. We have a very small team. We're just 5 people at the moment, and we're a small team with big ambitions and a big wish that we can make an impact about cleaning up the air in Pakistan. So with that, Christa, thank you very much.
Thank you, Abid. That was fantastic. Really appreciate your overview of Pakistan air quality and some of the work that you've been doing. So I've got a few questions, but as a reminder to folks, and as I've put in the chat, feel free to write questions to Abid, and we'll get to them using the Q&A function. And also, as Abid commented in the beginning, super cool to see so many air quality all-stars in the audience here, and excited to see what you might be interested in asking. So, but I wanted to first ask, so as you noted, Pakistan really does seem to be having a moment with air pollution. You mentioned the World Bank funding. We've seen in different ways how the government is taking, interested in taking action and developing plans to move forward now and in hopefully the years to come. And so I guess if this is possible, in a nutshell, what do you think has driven that? Uh, I'm sh what are I'm sure it's a collection of works, but I'm curious your thoughts on what's driven that action as for it being right now, like why now, I guess. And what do you hope to see happen with that momentum in the next couple of years in Pakistan? Which you sort of addressed that at the very end, but curious your expanded thoughts.
So what's driven that is that you can only put your head in the sand for so long. You can only for so long say that this is not our problem. This is somebody else's problem. The data isn't going away. Every year, every season, we see record-breaking levels of air pollution. For example, last November, we saw 2 weeks with AQI levels exceeding 2,000 AQI in Lahore and other cities in Punjab. And in fact, it was reported by the Punjab government that over the month of November, 15% of Lahore's population was hospitalized, went to the hospital with some issue. So 15% of the population, I believe that number was 1.87 million people. So that's an extraordinary number. So the conversation has shifted from saying, okay, this data is wrong, these low-cost monitors are misleading, and from doing things like saying that this is a criminal activity to release these air quality numbers. In fact, even as early as last year, we had one of our air quality monitor hosts being visited by the police and, asking them about the air quality monitor and why is it, and, why do you have it up? It was an interesting visit because the visits we've had earlier were more like, okay, shut it down and turn it off. This time they were more interested in learning more about it. But it's a very scary for the police to come knocking at your door. And also, the conversation used to be a lot about, okay, it is crop burning, and that is the whack-a-mole approach we must do. That's a problem to solve. Or the air pollution is coming from across the border, and India sending the pollution our way, so it's something they have to do. So like all of these, blaming some external actor has happened, right? Like blaming the data, blaming your neighbor, trying various things, and then seeing that, okay, every year it comes back. So um, I feel the government now really wants to do something, and they want to do something substantial. And and at the same time, there's a huge amount of public pressure, and there's a lot of awareness. I mean, there is not a single day in the newspapers and multiple newspapers and media reports where air pollution is not mentioned in Pakistan, and especially during the smog season. So it has become a major talking point. And here I must re-emphasize that it is because of the data, and it's because of real time and freely publicly available data that is driving this conversation.
Thanks for that. And sort of relate, I sort of riffing off that, I suppose, and something you've said to me before, and really resonates with me is that, the data, as you've been saying, it's a core piece. It's super important, but the data itself isn't necessarily like why you're in this work. It's sort of beyond the data. And I wonder if you could, if I'm not garbling your words, I wonder if you could, do I have that right? And if you could explain sort of the role of data in your work and maybe how you see the role of data moving forward, how it might change. Like, initially you're putting up monitors, but how you see going forward, like data might have a broader meaning for the work that you're doing as Pakistan's air quality landscape is maturing.
So, to solve air pollution, there's a very clear roadmap of what needs to happen, right? Like it happened in London in 1954, it happened in all across Europe and in the US in the 1970s, and just recently it's happened in Beijing. And the first step is air quality monitoring data to know about the problem. The second step is using that data to do modeling, to develop things like emissions inventories and source apportionments, which is where we are today in our journey. And then with that modeling, you can come up with forecasting as well, which is driving a lot of things. So without the data to begin with, like the next steps couldn't happen. But for the next step to happen, it's a lot harder than putting out a low-cost air quality monitor because, especially here in Pakistan, we released our first emissions inventory, which was Karachi on World Environment Day, and the struggle was for us was putting together the model for this emissions inventory. Are we following the right methodology? Are we using the right tools? We there was no academic peer that we could turn to, or unfortunately, we also couldn't engage anyone or interest anyone outside of Pakistan to support us with this. So, you know, and by the way, we've done these emissions inventories now for a number of cities, which we're hoping to release very soon. But it's always a struggle to create something for the first time. Like now that we've done it the first time, we're very confident. Okay, we can do it. For the next city, it's going to be a piece of cake. But what we're struggling, or like rather thinking about now, is we want to get into forecasting, and at this stage, we have no idea where to begin because. In Pakistan, there are no dedicated research organizations or university departments who are working solely on air pollution. Yes, there are people who have done some projects for a couple of months and then moved on to something else, or who might be doing projects even now. But until there's a full-time focus on this problem by a countless number of organizations, we're not going to be able to move the needle fast enough.
Yeah, yeah. Um, with your work, you've been able to connect the data and the work that you've been doing with government folks, with media outlets, to a very successful degree. And I think folks in the audience have had also varying degrees of success in doing that so far too. do you have any tips you would give others on how to communicate? Because obviously, engaging with all these different groups is critical. It can't just be, it's not one effort, right? It's really an effort, building on an effort, building on an effort kind of thing. And so how do you engage folks with your data from these different sectors, especially like some of the core ones, meaning government, meaning the media to get your message out, and any tips you would offer others elsewhere on what's successful and what's not in doing that.
So that is a difficult part, right? Like engaging with the community and doing advocacy and awareness, because again, like technological solutions, like putting more monitors is, more about logistics. Similarly, like, what the government's doing at the moment with, say, these smog guns, okay, it's like something you procure and you put it out and you deploy it. But raising awareness about the health impacts of air pollution, about what you can do to protect yourself from the ill effects, what you do to protect, the children and the elderly. So this is actually what our awareness sessions focus more about. It's less about the data when it comes down to it, right? Like, if I've had tried many different things in engaging with people, whether at conferences, at university levels, or at kindergartens. And I always come down to, like, it's always the same messaging that air pollution in cities in Pakistan is not just bad, and it's not just really bad. It is like the worst in the world, and it's so bad that we must run away from it, yet we can't. So we have to do like certain things, but these conversations, besides being at public forums and at events, is really think the key here is a community, like reaching out one on one. You have to build on the ground relationships. You have to meet people. You have to engage with them. You have to understand their concerns. And the sad part is they're like, what can I do? What can we do? And it's like, okay, there's really not much one can do as individuals about air pollution. Rather, it's about the awareness and the advocacy, and creating the public pressure and the incentive to the policymakers for change. So it's really about building connections.
Totally agree. And I'm gonna, even though I have more questions, we've got 17 open questions from folks who have made comments. So maybe I'll turn to those for a little bit to make sure we get to as many of those as we can. And I'll start with one from Deo Akure. He said, "Thanks, Abid, for an excellent presentation. It does seem like the problem is not a question of policy commitment, which is great. Question, is air quality management an evolved function in Pakistan? If so, how does Lahore compare with other cities in Pakistan in terms of local actions in the last 3 years?"
So air quality management isn't really existing, I would say, in Pakistan at all. It is evolving in Lahore, where there have been some stop and go efforts going back to 2017, driven by litigation with the public interest litigation with the Lahore High Court, which resulted in the creation of a smog commission, which, by the way, along with other policy steps, mandated the release of real-time air quality data by the government, which then subsequently triggered them to put up their first regulatory network. The release of the real-time data is still not done by the government up till now. And there are various policies in place but they're in a way kind of ad hoc. Like, I don't know now that what is going to happen in the next smog season, but they have similar to India's graded response action plans, that okay, if the pollution levels exceed a certain numbers, then they do discuss and do things like shut down schools, and ban traffic and ban movement of heavy vehicles. But these are not things that are really anticipated. In the sense, if you're a school and suddenly you're shut down tomorrow for the next week, then it's very disruptive. And by the way, these closures can go up to 2 months over the smog season, and they're very ad hoc. Like you'll find out today that tomorrow you're shut down. Similarly, if you're doing a big construction project, you'll find out that okay, I can't do construction for a month. So like it has these uh, impacts which are both economic, which both affect daily life. So these policies are a bit, like I said, a bit of whack-a-mole policies that, it's a laundry list of things that should happen and could happen. They're not really the smartest policies, but at least they are something. Beyond Lahore, some of these policies, like around the educational institutes, do happen in Punjab as well. But outside of that, I would say there's really no real air quality management at all. Like in Karachi, for example, a city of almost 20 million, there is no regulatory grade monitoring. There is no activity or action by the government on anything about air pollution. So it's as a nation as a whole, it's largely an ignored topic. Though in Punjab, the most populous state, and with Lahore as the epicenter, that is where the action is starting to happen.
Thanks for that. And I'll call out that one of our awardees, the urban unit, is a government related entity, and we hope to have them on as well to maybe share more about a government perspective in a future webinar too. So another question, and I promise I didn't plant this one, but Brian Mayo asks, do you own the data that you collect, or is the air quality data owned by the device manufacturers? What are your thoughts on that?
We do own the data. And we're device agnostic, even though the majority of our devices are by one manufacturer. But we're open to whichever device works in our context, in our environment. And thanks to the EPIC Air Quality Award, a lot of manufacturers have now made their data openly available through the OpenAQ platform. So it's actually, for us, the data is openly available to anyone. One thing about that, so the data that's being openly available is hourly level data on the OpenAI platform, but we also have access to the minute level data from the devices itself.
Thanks for that. We'll move to Bhushan Tuladar. He says, thank you for the excellent presentation and all the good work you're doing. What do you see as low-hanging fruits when it comes to solutions, particularly for crop burning and open waste burning? And what's the response from the government to data from low-cost sensors? Is it credibility? Is it accepted or is it questioned? It's kind of two.
So about the acceptance of data, look, it's been a bit of a head in the stand approach for them putting out a notice saying that this is a criminal action as per the Pakistan's Electronic and Media Regulatory Authority, where they said that air quality data is only allowed to be disseminated by the government. Luckily, nothing came of that, and that's one reason why when you go look at air quality data from Pakistan, you don't really see our name that much. That is now going to change with EPIC, but the 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 government questions the credibility of the data coming from low-cost monitors, and well, they even questioned the data coming from the US EPA's network over here. So, I mean, data here, the government, I think, wants to own the data and they want to present their own image of what the air quality looks like. They don't want some external actor to say, okay, this is what air quality is. I hope that conversation is going to change over the years, but the role of low-cost monitors is not yet there's not regulatory clarity anywhere in the world about where they should fit in terms of law. Of course, there's a lot happening in European Union and USA to integrate air quality data and very low-cost air quality data in various things. But so I think the data will be questioned even if it is regulatory coming from regulatory grade equipment. And the other question part was?
I believe it is around solutions. I sort of, oh, I see.
So solutions and low-hanging fruit, yes. So look, the solutions are easy, right? Like you saw pictures of waste on, smoldering away. Like waste management is not rocket science. Landfill site management, there's like textbooks out there which you can pick up and you say, okay, this needs to be done. Um, our local context of collecting waste and disposing of waste would not be very different from anywhere else actually. But why it doesn't happen is, I think, the real issue, and that why is a story of every city and country in the global south that struggles to like move ahead. And that's an issue of governance, of oversight, of accountability. That is not happening. Another low-hanging fruit, which we feel would have the biggest overnight impact, is to improve fuel standards in Pakistan. The petrol and diesel that we get meets Euro 2 standards, and some of it, so about 50% is refined locally and 50% is imported. So the imported one now, after great resistance by the government, now meets Euro 4 standards, whereas the local one meets Euro 2 standards. But these are all stored in the same storage depots before they're distributed. So, you can't really choose to get a higher quality fuel. And why do I say that's going to make an overnight difference? Is because even though it costs a couple of $1 billion to upgrade the refineries locally, when you put that billions of dollars in the context of how much impact it is making on the cost of the fuel, it is less than 1 percentage point. So, when it comes down to it, it's not that much. And immediately with that one step, you will cut down on what is about 30 to 40% of air pollution emissions in most of our cities. So crop burning, you mentioned, look, crop burning is just visually very striking. It only happens for 2 weeks of the year, roughly, like the peak crop. So crop burning goes on for about a month, where it peaks for about 2 weeks in November. And there's also a crop burning season happening in the spring harvest, I think around March, April. Um, but the pollution levels that you see are hazardous for about 6 months of the year. So, why should we focus our resources on those 2 weeks and not look at what are the bigger contributors over the entire year? So, and it's also a harder and longer term problem to solve, right? Like, it's not as simple as saying, okay, stop burning. Like, what are the alternatives? The alternatives cost a lot. And the alternative is not just to come up with alternative harvesting methods. It's more about shifting practices towards sustainable and regenerative agriculture and reducing usage of pesticides and fertilizers. And, we didn't even talk about nitrogen oxide pollution coming from extremely heavy use of fertilizer in Pakistan, and the risk on human health by the way pesticides are sprayed over here, which they're not done by machine, they're done essentially by hand, where the spray is also coming on the person, and it's very, very poisonous. So these solutions are more about again, education, awareness, changing culture, in reintroducing practices, so which will probably take a much longer time to implement.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to, for this next question, combine a couple. I see there's a theme from a couple, at least a couple folks here. For example, Mansur and Newton are asking about your how you collaborate with various groups. Specifically, there's a question about whether you collaborate with researchers from universities, whether that's, I assume, in Pakistan or elsewhere, how you collaborate with policymakers. What does this sort of look like in a practical way? And I would throw in maybe the media there too, just like what does the direct engagement look like for you all?
So the difficult one with the government, we haven't really managed to have any particular success. And that's, I think, to do with how entrenched organizations, like whether it is government or other research organizations or international development organizations work, they only want to work with other established actors who've had decades of experience doing something and having a track record and delivering on that. When it's something new, you don't have that track record. So, for example, the previous World Bank loan given to Pakistan in 2018 to set up 30 air quality monitors, from 2018, they only got deployed last year in 2024. And the way the project was designed was that it said, okay, so these are regulatory grade monitors, right? So they're like, much more sophisticated systems monitoring all the criteria of pollutants. It said, okay, you have to have done a similar project before of a similar scale, and you need to have like, financial outlay of, many billions of rupees, which meant that no Pakistani organization could participate in, even could apply to participate in this. So similarly, even for smaller research projects, whether it's, policy advisory, the older entrenched organizations tend to be favored. I think air quality is a new field, and the way we are working, the way the University of Chicago, where this award is working, as well as some other institutes, some of the names that are participating here, these are all new entities which did not exist 10 years ago in this sphere. Or in any sphere, right? Like today, people doing air quality research, I'm sure tomorrow will be like, the climate change researchers once say these solutions are on their way. So, and similarly, we've had difficulty trying to collaborate internationally because we haven't been able to, let's say, drum up the interest from someone outside to work here. I mean, there have been lots of conversations over my 8 years of doing this, but has anything actually happened? Not yet. Yes, some things have happened with other organizations. Urban Unit is doing something with the university. We have had some very small collaborations, but nothing substantial. Like, I mentioned that we need emissions inventories. We need to up our game on that, say, to make it more scientific and rigorous and have source apportionment. We'd love to be able to work with someone on that. The last one about local universities. So we have, say, agreements in place with a number of local universities. So the prestigious LUMS, Lahore University of Management Sciences, the UML, another university in Lahore, a university in Karachi. So, but none of them have the expertise. So who do we work with over there, right? Like they want to do something, but there's one person who works on energy policy, who's interested in doing similar air pollution. There's somebody working on electric vehicle policy. But how do we get air pollution to fit in where we're still trying to explore what is the right thing that needs to be done. And often when we come up with an idea, okay, let's get into forecasting, for example, there's a lot of demand to have a forecast. And, if you open the Google Maps and turn on the air quality layer, only recently they turned the layer on India, but in Pakistan we don't have that. But India has dozens and dozens of locally developed air quality forecasts by universities, by other research institutions. You can go on the various websites and find them. We don't have a single one for Pakistan. So I don't think it should be that difficult. We just don't know how to do it yet. And these are the conversations that we have with people. Okay, we want to do this, but how do we do that? We're stuck.
Yeah, I hear that. So I believe one more question from the audience, and then I'll transition to a couple last questions for you. Um, so someone, Abinaya asks how the public's responding to the solutions like the smog tower and the anti-smog guns. And I guess I'd broaden that out to also, is the public aware, for example, of this, widely aware of this World Bank funding that's coming in? Sort of what's the current appetite and interest around the solutions piece and maybe to the quality of solutions from the public?
So the public awareness is very much there, right? Like air quality is in the media discourse. It's a topic of daily discussion. Um, the awareness and the discussion around the solutions is not there as yet. Um, One, the solutions aren't really quantified. There's no like cost benefit analysis. Like we don't really know what we should do, right? Like I mentioned some low-hanging fruit. And by the way, one other context that's very important is what is happening in Pakistan in terms of we are going through this rapid energy transition driven by economics, where Pakistan is one of the largest installers of rooftop solar, where we're talking about gigawatts of solar being installed every month in Pakistan in private settings. So these are not huge government projects. These are like private companies, homes, schools who are going off the grid and going into solar. So that transition is happening. The EV transition is, let's say, coming to Pakistan with two very large EV producers announcing that they will set up factories with manufacturing starting as early as March next year. So EVs are going to be out on the road. So there is, let's say, behind the scenes, a certain transition happening, which is perhaps going to really accelerate the change over here. There are also electric buses coming into play in Lahore in particular, also in Karachi. But the discussion tends to be more around, right? I mean, like in a place like Pakistan, where if you imagine the common person, they're more concerned about putting food on their table and earning a living and making sure their children go to school and the parents are not sick. So I don't think it's a job of the ordinary public to be really concerned about the solutions. That it is in the domain of, say, policymakers supported by people helping develop the evidence base, and therefore also like creating the communications and advocacy around what the solutions should be, and what should be acceptable solutions, and again, so that we don't divert our resources into thinking that these smog towers and smog guns are the solutions that we should be having.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I tend to agree. It's a lot to ask the public to vet solutions, technical solutions, and whether they work or not. So we do still have a lot of open questions. Maybe Abid, I'll ask you if you have the bandwidth at the end to stick around for a few more minutes and perhaps answer by typing, if that makes sense. Some of the ones that I think are fast. I think there's a broad question of how to get in touch with you after this in a few different ways. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that in the chat, of course we'd love that too. But I guess I wanted to ask a question that's really around it's a bit weedsy, and it's a bit more about the organization you set up, because I think a lot of the folks listening either have set up, and thanks for putting your email in, either have set up organizations or are working within an organization or are thinking about it. So this is especially for the folks who are perhaps thinking about setting up an air quality related organization. I wondered if you could just share a little bit about your thought process of when what you were doing turned into an organization and why, and your thought process of forming the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative the way you did. There's many options one can do. One can make a for-profit entity, a nonprofit entity. They can be part of a university. They can be part of some existing nonprofit. Many they can stay informal. I'm curious why you all formed the way you did, and maybe a brief timeline of like when that decision making happened.
This story, the story of Paki, is of citizen science. It is of curiosity. It is of just wanting to know what is in the environment, and of course, it's also a story of community building and community outreach. But how it started was, and there's somebody here from Bangladesh who's been asking me for a long time. I want to like do something like this, and I'm like, just go out there, buy an air quality monitor. It doesn't co it costs much less than the mobile phone that most people have, right? Like an iPhone is $1,000. This is a $300 device. You can even get $100 ones. You can even these days build your own ones. There are open source solutions out there. So just put up the first monitor, and then, like I said, the second one to make sure the first is telling you the truth. And then after that, it is all about community building. So with me, I was like, okay, so I have another job in a field which is completely unrelated in the textile industry. And I used to go around to the government and I would say, listen, there's a lot of money in solving air pollution. There is international funding available from development agencies. Why don't you get into it or think about it? For example, I've been trying with the mayor of Karachi, with Karachi being a member of the C40 cities and the C40s having a clean air city program with support from the Clean Air Fund. And I'm saying, like, get Karachi on board on that, but there's no interest. I went to so many universities and I said, you need to set up a research group. This is a full-time job. Like, let's put together a team. I can be on board as a consultant or as an advisory role or something, right? Let's get something started. And when so many years went by and nothing really happened. And like I said, there have been some engagements where somebody might have a project for a couple of months and then do something, but they're not air quality experts. They're not atmospheric scientists or chemists. It's not their field, and those people don't exist in Pakistan. So it finally came down to I was like, okay, like I've already devoted so much of my life and my time on this issue. And there are many times that I have given up where I've said, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm sick of hearing about PM 2.5 and low cost monitors. There is more to the world and more to life. But then I think of the impact that this has made to date. I mean, the impact is not localized in one neighborhood or one city. This is a nationwide impact. And that impact of that awakening of a nation about its air quality problem and its potential in driving change in Pakistan in terms of improving the health, life expectancy, economic benefits of air pollution, like, solving air pollution, like there's so many benefits that I think this is the most important thing to work on in terms of its impact. Like unlike say like climate change, where you think of a glacier melting in the Pakistani Himalayas or the Swiss Alps, it's something very foreign and something very far away. That image of the polar bear fall on the floating on an iceberg, like this is stuff that you can't hide from. You feel it every day. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, if you have an air purifier or a mask, you simply cannot hide from air pollution. So that was my personal incentive and still is. But I think the first step happened was finding the right team of people to work with, and with that, Davar Butt agreed to come on board. He's does climate and policy consultancy, so he came on board. And when I said, okay, if you're coming on board as a full-time person, we can do this. And the day we kind of officially launched, we already identified our first data scientist who's very young, very talented, doing incredible work. Like, he's doing a lot of the, let's say, hard work behind the scenes for us. He was in the earlier EPIC webinar that we did on population-based optimization of air quality monitoring network. So, like, I think just take the first step and then start. It doesn't matter if it's a part of a university, if it's, private or is it non-profit. those are all secondary considerations, and those are also to do with the local environment. We, by the way, tried for over a year to register as a nonprofit in Pakistan, and eventually we found out that it's just not going to happen. So we had to register as a for-profit, even though we are working as a nonprofit entity. So I mean, those are our local challenges, and I believe in India it's the same. Where to become a nonprofit these days, it's just somehow not encouraged. So, but just take the first step. Just start something. Start somewhere, and it takes a life of its own.
I think that is the perfect place to wrap up. So I know we didn't get to nearly all the questions. Again, I'll ask if Abid, you have 5 minutes. Our team will take a few minutes afterwards. So if you asked a question and want to see the answer, we'll do our best to type in responses to everyone as much as possible. But I want to thank you, Abid, to you and the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative for joining us today to share your work, which has lessons not just for Pakistan, but many places and people across the world who are, working in their community or with their government toward cleaner air, and how basic data can be the start of that change. I also want to thank Tanushree Ganguly, who's the director of the Air Quality Life Index program, who is the mastermind behind this webinar series. And as for the upcoming Data to Action webinars, we plan to hold a few this fall featuring work in South Asia, hopefully Pakistan again, as I mentioned, Southeast Asia and Africa, and especially honing in on stories from governments and about how governments are using air quality data to move forward first ever landmark clean air legislation in a few places. So stay tuned for more details on that. Thank you again for joining, and have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are across the planet. And thank you, Abid, again,
Thank you, everyone.
if you're able to stay on a few minutes.
I am available. Yes.
Cool. I will also stay on and type answers.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
here
So
too. I can also help.
There are a couple of questions about data availability. So, look, we're still trying to figure out what the best way to share data is. Our data is best, I would say, accessed through OpenAQ. It is not online yet over there, but it will soon be. We kind of struggle because we do it manually, where we pull the data and then consolidate it and using Excel. So that is one of our, say, struggles, where we want to figure out how we can automate it. So, I mean, we get so many requests about sending data, and we do send data where we can. And especially, we found out that when it comes to, well, media, they don't want data; they want actually an analysis. So we also do that, where it's not just, okay, here's a CSV with tens of thousands of rows, but here's the analysis and our thoughts behind it. But anyone doing science, just send an email and we'll send you whatever data that you're looking for. Tanushree, any question that you think we should look at?
There's one interesting question on this ongoing efforts in Pakistan to take key stakeholders such as healthcare professionals on interpreting air quality data. That was an interesting one, if you want to take that up.
So we put together a group of a community of practice called the Pakistan Air Quality Experts Group, where we do have policymakers, climate change people, doctors, other health professionals, lawyers, so who are interested in doing certain things. But health, and there is one researcher who is actively doing a project on air quality. We're doing that with her, but there's nothing really published. But at the same time, I would say there's not much happening on health research. And health research is probably the most important area where one needs to be working on, because as more and more research is coming out, the global burden of disease and so on, we're finding out that air pollution is much more dangerous than has been anticipated. And every revision is answering that, telling us it's more dangerous. But how much of that research is being driven by extremely polluted environments in Pakistan and India and Bangladesh and in Africa and the global South? That I think is an area where a lot more needs to be done. But health research is such a complex field, and it's a field that, let's say, like best left to the health professionals. And I wish there were projects that I knew of that are happening in Pakistan about that. Okay, so any other questions?
There are a couple around validating the sensor data if you want to take those.
So we're using, let's say, sensors by other manufacturers. We deliberately said, I don't want to get into like making our own sensor by getting a plant tower and putting it together, because you're better off using something that's established and tested in many other parts of the world. So companies like IQ Air Gradient, Purple Air are doing that. So they are validating them in their environments. Yes, we do have, let's say, sensors installed close enough, let's say a kilometer away from the US Embassy when they were reporting air quality data. So we have done those comparisons, and we find that when you have just one monitor in one location and the embassies tend to be in a more polluted part of the city, they have much higher pollution levels. So our network is a bit more representative. But that said, like often in my presentations, I don't even show our data. I show data coming from the Pakistan government. I show US EP, the embassy's data. And basically what we found, if the US embassy, for example, for Lahore, was showing that it's 124 annual average, and our monitor was showing, let's say, 120, and the government's data was showing 100. They're all kind of saying the same thing at the end of the day. That being said, we are in discussion at this very moment with the Punjab government about doing co-location studies, and those systems really serious. I hope they do happen because it'll help us validate our sensors for the environment over here.
And I think we've gotten to it. I mean, Tanushri, flag any others you think we might want to answer, but I also want to be mindful of your time, Abid. You've been gracious with staying a little bit longer, but anything else you would flag, Tanushri?
No, I think we've covered all the themes.
Great. Well, thank you again, Abid. Thanks, Tanushri. Thanks for the folks who are still on here with us. And hope you join us for our next session. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
Krista. Bye, Tanushree, and thank you all the attendees. Bye.